I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo does not take days off. Mr. Andrew Kuo, you're not your typical ebullient, effervescent self right now. What's going on? Is it the Knicks draft? Is it the Undying only having one episode left? Why the glum looks?
Man, I'm stressed. I'm stirring that tomato sauce, looking up at choppers, circling my apartment. My boys Tony Meatballs, Joey Electric, and Louis Sheep just got pinched.
Oh, I forgot that you were tied to the recent mob sting in Philadelphia that took down 15 members of La Cosa Nostra.
The Italian mafia has accepted me, a short Asian man, as one of their own. It's pretty cool.
I thought it was that you and Tony Meatballs worked really well together.
Oh, we do. Come on. We're two peas in a pot. We're two balls in a sub over here.
Carbonara.
Tony Meatballs, I've learned everything from Tony Meatballs. My Knicks takes, eating over the sink, maybe even eating over the trash, Ben.
Is this where you learned from Tony Meatballs, perhaps, how to cut garlic so thin that it would melt in the pan?
That's right. And that's when I hid diamonds. Oh, no, that's the wrong movie.
You can't really do that with garlic, I gotta be honest.
It doesn't really quite happen with garlic. Also,
Definitely doesn't happen. Garlic doesn't melt.
garlic doesn't melt, and also the blade of like a shaving razor has like this weird oil on it. I'm sure it's harmless, but it's kind of gross to me. So that scene of them cutting garlic in Goodfellas, right? In the prison, to me, I don't know, not so savory, if you catch my drift.
I do catch your drift, and I saw what you did there. Great scene, memorable.
Yeah, that's awesome scene.
I just take exception with that idea that garlic can be sliced that thin, but maybe it's a metaphor. Maybe it's the idea that garlic could potentially be cut that thin is what we're really supposed to cling to.
I have tried to do that, and I've gotten garlic pretty damn thin. So you can read a New York Times through it, right, as they say. But it doesn't quite disappear, but if you cook it long enough, it kind of like gets mushy and goes into your sauce. How do you do... Okay, quick. What's your marinara recipe in a pinch? Shout out to Joey Meatballs. Meatballs.
The one that Joey Meatballs taught me?
Yeah.
Tony Meatballs. What am I doing, Joey Meatballs?
That's
it's
Joey
Tony
Electric.
Meatballs. Joey Electric, Tony
We'll get to
Meatballs.
electric stuff later.
I always get those two confused. Mm-hmm. I like anchovies.
That's a good move. Yeah.
Lots of garlic, probably triple the amount you're supposed to.
Do you put it into the sauce? I kind of make a bouquet of it sometimes.
I think I start out with little onion, little garlic.
Onion, huh?
Yeah,
You
but not
chop
too
'em
much.
and
Like
saute?
2 tablespoons of onion. Cook them until they're yellow. Throw in your tomatoes. But I feel like, I guess right then that's where you'd throw in your anchovies if you're using them. But I don't know if an actual like traditional marinara has anchovies. But I do like them in my spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, I love anchovies on
They
almost
do melt,
everything.
however.
Yes. Yeah, I usually do a whole onion without... I have it. And then sometimes I'll even put it in like one of those like cotton bags for soup stocks, for herbs and stuff. I'll put it in one of those so all the sweetness of the onion goes into the sauce.
Are you talking about a sachet?
A sachet?
Aren't they called a sachet?
Something like that. Or I just scoop them out. But always some tomato paste too. It needs kind of that like weird concentrated depth and thickness.
That's also the classic Hazan tomato sauce recipe.
Oh,
which
right.
is the one where you just chop the onion in half and toss it in there. Mm-hmm. And it just cooks for a while with the onion in there. Not chopped up, not sauteed, just in there.
And you could wash your basil, but leave it on the stems and tie them up with string and put the whole thing in and then take it out when you're ready.
In her recipe, I want to say you lay them on top of the burbling sauce, and then they slowly sort of fall and wilt and then go into it. But you just lay them on top.
Yeah. I mean, they're nice to eat too, so I'm down with leaving them in.
Hassan's recipes are great though. I highly recommend. They're super, super simple, very traditional Italian recipes. Ones that do not look impressive, that do not include many exotic ingredients or difficult techniques. They just require like chickpeas, stock, an onion, and it ends up being fantastic.
And also, an underrated player on the Portland Trail. I mean, Hassan is a rim protector as well as a defensive presence, but maybe not in the locker room so much.
Look, I'm not sure what you've learned from Tony Meatballs, but it's not to show respect.
I love how the crimes that Tony Meatballs is accused of, like, it sound abstract to me, like racketeering. I don't know, gambling charges, extortion, which is for real bad stuff. But to me, it's just like a cartoon character of a criminal that like seems like it should be animated, and he should like slip on a frozen puddle and like, oh, not today, copper, whatever, stuff like that.
Well, speaking of those kind of charges, there was that bust of an illegal boxing match in the Bronx.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounded crazy, right? When you read all the charges, and it was like illegal gathering of people, illegal sale of alcohol. There was a couple of guns in the mix. But those other charges, and it was like, wow, a lot was going on. And then you realize that was a thing downtown for like 5 years. Like model boxing, like these secret warehouse boxing matches. And like, other than the guns, it was kind of the exact same thing. And who's to say people at those didn't have a gun to protect, the money they made off of admission or gambling or something. I don't know. I read that whole thing and it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And I was like, yeah, we were kind of doing those at Milk Studios, exactly the same.
I feel like Fight Club like spawned a lot of these activities, but like I guess that is kind of the most natural thing. You're hanging out with a bunch of knuckleheads. Maybe Tony Meatballs is there. Maybe Joey Electric shows up. Who knows? He's always around. Oh, Louis Sheep. So the whole crew is there, and you're just like, you arm wrestle a couple times. Someone loses a couple $100, gets a little heated. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Sonny Mazzone starts getting in his feelings a little bit.
Yeah, little salvo. Big Vic is like, well, if you want to fight, let's fight. And everyone's like, hold up, before you guys fight, I'm taking bets, and it just like happens. I feel like it's as old as a Martin Scorsese movie.
I also just looked at the Fight Club in the Bronx as, well, you're not allowed to do indoor boxing matches right now. There are a community of people who want to watch boxing and want to bet on boxing. And someone said, okay, let's just set up a ring because you can rent boxing rings. And they just did it.
Yeah. Boxing is prize fighting, and prize fighting just like happens. It's like, hey, do you think you can take this guy for $100? It's like, oh, I can take him. It's like, oh, fuck you. It's like, oh, I got 100 on the other guy. It happens after a couple gabagools, right?
Inevitably.
A gabagool just leads to underground fighting ring, right?
All I'm saying here is, in another time, pre-COVID, there was an underground fighting match on every corner. Walk around, underground fighting match, great, let's stop in for a quick bet.
I'm into boxing. One of my good buddies who is like obsessed with boxing because it's so weird, right? Like the whole premise of it is kind of stupid, and the boxing association is a mess, and all the stories of every boxer is like wild, and it's a really fascinating thing, but it might be a little too barbaric for me sometimes, man.
At least boxing is somewhat honest about its brutality and its damage to your head in a way that football isn't. which is the only reason I think those sports like MMA and boxing are at least somewhat morally superior to football is that they don't, that they don't pretend to be the culture of America. Like, no, this is fringy. It's people punching each other in the face. It's not for you, dog.
Yeah. Also, remember that they don't generate that much money, so it's easy to like have that transparency. And I agree. They talk about it. It's like, hey, if you're willing to get the snot kicked out of you, there might be consequences long term. Like, I'm willing to take those terms because there's no money involved. Like, sure, millions of dollars pass his hands, but not like football, which is basically the mafia, right? That's where Tony Meatballs resides more.
Come on. Show some respect for Joey Electric.
Sheepy balls over here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's why the mafia has nothing to do with boxing.
Well, there's not good money there because there's not enough action.
Surely they would not create an entire city in the desert involved in such enterprises.
But the action is in football, right? Like, there's a lot more frequency there.
Look, you're the one with all the mob ties. I defer to you.
Oh, I gotta go. There's a chopper over there. Joey Meatballs. Don't burn the sauce.
It's Tony Meatballs.
I know.
Jesus Christ. Well, speaking of underground enterprises, there was a story in New York Magazine about people who partied during COVID. And I felt like there mostly seemed to be kind of like the raving community. Most of them were outdoors. People, I don't know that even generated the firestorm of attention that they probably thought it might have. You know, we've seen a few of these stories, right? Mm-hmm. About kind of like what's still been going on beneath the radar. And like that boxing thing in the Bronx was like that. I've heard from a few people about like illegal sort of like strip clubs and stuff that have kind of popped up. I mean, wherever there's an appetite for this stuff, people are going to, like I heard of one of the East Village too.
Yeah.
Wherever there's an audience for it, regardless of COVID or not, people are going to create these things. And it's kind of the opposite of like the supply and demand with COVID. There's just no supply of people who are willing to sit in a movie theater. But there is enough of a supply to have a couple illegal like topless bars pop up.
I'm just surprised at, and I'm going to say this a bunch of times this pod, like the America or your boy Cuomo, or more so your dude BDB,
My guy.
they haven't really incentivized us. I mean, you would think death would be enough, right? Like, I'm not budging. I'm hanging out with Tony Meatballs, but that's about it. We're part of the same bub, unfortunately. But like, I think they're not incentivizing the community at large to not do these things, and I don't know what that incentivizing would pertain to, but it would either be punishment or like an excuse not to do those things. And whatever stance you want to take on it, I'm like, people aren't motivated to obey the rules in general, and they're certainly not motivated by BDB to do it now. Bill de Blasio.
Well, I also think when you're talking about these kind of vices, like I really want to rave. I really want to go sit in a topless bar. I really want to do this thing. It doesn't fucking matter. It could be a war. It could be a pandemic. Doesn't matter. You can incentivize people not to do stuff all they want. These industries will find a way.
I'm not sure. It's kind of dying now, right?
They are nature. I'm saying, but that was my previous point. These are not massive, huge industries. I'm saying for that outlier group of people, you can't de-incentivize them to want to go and stand outside and listen to techno. Like, that's their thing.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's like really into strip clubs and they've closed them all down, someone's going to say, hey, we're going to have a little strip club thing going. Are you in? You're like, yes, because that's my thing. You can't say, stay home, man. Here's some money. They're like, that's all cool, but what I really want to do is rave.
But you can say, like, they've been cracking down on me, man. I'm not willing to risk it. Like, even bars are just like, even bars that are friendly usually are like, you cannot do this, guys. You cannot have this many people out there. We're gonna get in trouble. I don't want to get another ticket. We just got a ticket.
Sure. No. I'm saying you can do as good a job as possible with these things, right?
Yeah.
And they're not doing that, but you could, and you will still have people that no matter what, war, pandemic, famine, they're gonna figure out a way to have like a lap dance. Like they're just gonna solve that dilemma by hook or by crook.
I thought VR would be something by now. Maybe I jumped the gun on that. I'm a sci-fi fan. But I was just like, isn't this the time for VR? How come everyone isn't buying like these box headsets that, and how come there aren't apps that are all the rage?
Look, some people are purists. They need that tactile experience of being in a strip club.
And then some people aren't purists, put on these headsets and move down to North Carolina to play basketball.
The gaming rig.
Parting shot to Boston on the way out.
Well, we're going to talk about Boston's toxic culture in a little while. I'm worried about it. I think the league should step in. Frank Layden, perhaps. I don't know. Jerry Krause, if he was still here, would be perfect to right that sinking ship. We'll
Grunfeld somewhere. Whatever Grunfeld is around.
No one knows.
Yeah.
But the same topics about the enduring illegality of clubbing and strip clubs and boxing, etc. They have made outdoor dining legal. Like, you can do that. But now we're starting to see blowback, mostly in the form of Twitter scolding, mostly based on photos that are taken from various angles of structures, towards like anti-outdoor dining, that now they're just building houses that are actually indoors outside. And we talked about this, and I think there's some cases where people could be doing a better job ventilating these spots. Mm-hmm. But now it's kind of it's a topic of conversation. People were furious about this over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's sort of like glamping, right? Like at first everyone's like, oh, we'll put these it was warm, so we'll put these tables out, some flowers, paint it amazing colors, incredible. Gets a little colder, it's like, we'll put a heater in there, a flat screen TV, no wind, because you don't want your customers to get chilly. You basically have your own like karaoke room outside, and everyone's like, that's basically inside. I'm like, yeah, but like the progression to that has been kind of obvious.
Oh, you wanted people to winterize?
Yeah.
You know that means walls.
Yeah. It's glamping, man. And I don't know. I think some of the structures are kind of genius. Sometimes I'll take a picture and it's just very impressive. And they're not as safe, but they're still safe enough. Hey, people know the risks. If you want to risk it, it is what it is. We know enough at this point.
Yeah, my thing is that there are some you see, and you can probably guess the ventilation would not be ideal.
Yeah.
Sure. That's also a very small amount of these structures. Most of them have one side fully open, like the vast majority.
Yeah, that's
a lot of them have slats in the sides. It's really just air current. That's it. It's just air current.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid aerosols, that's the entire point. It's not going to protect you from the person across the table from you, because that's not the point. The point is to protect the staff, which these places actually do really well. If air is traveling around, the staff can come in and out and doesn't spend that much time around any individual person. Drops off food, gets the fuck out of the structure. Comes in, drops it out. Like, they are unlikely, even statistically from what they've shown, it's not servers who are getting sick. It's people in the kitchen. Someone gets it and passes it around because they're inside in small enclosed areas for long periods of time. Servers are not getting COVID. It's like, as a matter of course here. No pun intended.
Yeah, I think like this COVID thing is, we've talked about this endlessly, but there's a cultural aspect to it and there's a scientific aspect to it. It runs parallel to the way we talk about basketball on Twitter. But I think I just feel really bad for these restaurants because there's no help coming. And they're not dummies. They're like, yeah, this isn't 100% as safe as it was in August.
Exactly.
But they're like, we're dying over here. And like, we're trying to make it as safe as possible. But I get complaints about wind. And like, if no one shows up this weekend, I'm done. and it comes back to incentivizing. What are we incentivizing these restaurants to do to make these structures?
100%. Literally incentivize them to build places that will not be too cold to scare off customers.
Yeah.
Also, again, even those ones that are a little too indoors, that we're allowed to do indoor dining for the time being.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, they're like, that's not even outdoor dining. Well, their restaurants also open inside.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. I don't know. I don't think that indoor dining is going to survive the winter. But we'll see. Yeah. I don't understand California closing indoor and outdoor dining. That's wild to me.
Yeah, everyone has like a different knee-jerk reaction to this, like all these governors. And I guess Gavin Newsom put a 10 o'clock curfew on California for a month, maybe LA for a month. Some skeptics would say, like, well, this isn't addressing a particular thing that's causing the spread. This is kind of a more cultural and optic move than it is a scientific one. But man, people are just trying their best, and like, we're not scientists, and it's very confusing. Like, how are we going to solve Thanksgiving this year? Is there a way to do this?
And this goes back to scapegoating the same people over and over and over.
Yeah.
Scapegoating young people, scapegoating the partiers, scapegoating the people who want to eat at restaurants.
Yeah.
Like, the real problem is people being forced to go back to work. It's not this incredibly huge population of people that's drinking street beers.
Yeah.
The fact that millions of people are forced to work during this. When people weren't working except for essential workers, the case numbers in New York plunged.
Yeah. I mean, there will be a spike after this week for sure. It's almost an inevitability. And we just have to deal with this. We knew it was coming. I've chosen not to leave my apartment, but it suits me because the only family I have is my brother, who is like, hey man, we should keep it safe this year. So like, but me and you always see each other kind of like at our friend's spot on Thanksgiving. It's kind of a tradition. That's probably going to happen this year, but I won't be there. It's sad, but like, this is just kind of a one-to-one kind of interaction.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing for Thanksgiving. I had planned on visiting my parents, and now I have bailed on that. Not because I think it's incredibly risky from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
But like, why take that chance? I mean, I know holidays are important, I guess, but why take that chance? Mm-hmm. Why have that hanging over a week-long stay that maybe I'm gonna murder mom and dad? Like,
not worth it.
Not really worth it from a mental standpoint. Even if I got tested, I would not feel that comfortable. Even if I was isolating from people completely, just because, like, why introduce that element?
Yeah.
I thought about it, I considered it, and I wasn't comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing my friends, especially outdoors, and seeing people in New York, but the idea of just being around inside people who would be vulnerable to this for days on end. Like, if you just somehow are unlucky enough to have this and the testing hit at the wrong time, like, they're cooked.
Yeah. I think the discussions we're having about Thanksgiving, the shaming, the not shaming, I've seen already on TV, like, interviewing young people at airports saying that they're not scared. I'm like, right. You should interview their parents who are not scared of them having
it's like,
come
it's
over.
Always blaming the young people.
Yeah, because
it's always no young people like, I'm definitely coming home, and the parents like, please don't. I'm like, fuck you, mom. I'm coming up there and I'm bringing a turkey and I'm bringing a pecan pie over your dead body. No, it's all the parents begging people to come back. Yeah. No, come back. Come on. It's Thanksgiving. It would mean a lot to your mother.
And I just think there's going to be a special name for this kind of trauma. Just trying to defend yourself. Just like like a lot of our parents are older, and like not seeing them every year is getting more and more seeing them every year is more and more special, right? And not seeing them one time when we usually do is traumatic. And whatever happens, like moving forward, the trauma that we're going to suffer from this is like a really specific, unique one. And I hope we can shift to that quickly. I mean, these vaccines look good. They're going to release one soon, I think, and see what happens. But we have to talk about the way we've kind of like lost our minds a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. If you miss a Thanksgiving, you miss a Thanksgiving. If you miss Christmas, you miss Christmas. Suck it up.
I know. But like, I feel bad for a bunch of my friends have parents who are doing great, but struggle, and they wonder if this is the last Thanksgiving, and it's really tough.
If someone says, I'm that worried about my parents and I want to see them so bad because I think they're going to die, then hopefully they take the proper precautions.
For sure.
That's all. I don't think it's like a hard no. If you're saying, yeah, I isolated for like 2 weeks, I've been tested twice, I think you're probably good to go.
Yeah.
I think just like if you took those real precautions. But, there was that article in the New York Times, like an op-ed, and the guy talked about how expansive his circle ended up being without his knowledge. His children's friends and their parents, and how it kind of just exploded outward. And that was the entire article. And at the end, he said, and after that, I decided that I would probably get tested and I was going to go anyway. I love my parents too much. And people were furious. People were so furious. Because you read the whole article expecting it to say, knowing what I now know, there's no way in hell I'm seeing my parents. He was like, yeah, we might isolate. Firestorm of criticism. And they had to go back and edit it. And he was like talking about, I know I'll get criticism for this after the fact. And they put in a few other things to kind of like, and we're going to eat dinner outside, actually. And they changed up the whole ending. I mean, that was kind of amazing.
I like people who roll up their sleeves when they log on to an opinion editorial section and be like, this will coincide with all my beliefs. It's like, no, it doesn't. And I hear that guy, man. So I think
right. My thing was, why would you go back and edit it? You're just like, oh
annoying.
Shit, I look bad. Okay, let me change it. Man, you told us what you believe. You don't have to go back and explain it further.
Yeah.
You told us.
Yeah.
If you were really going to eat doors outside, you would have said it. You weren't planning on eating outdoors. You weren't
Or
planning
who
on this
cares?
stuff.
Or maybe he was convinced and he was just like, I want to clarify. Maybe I don't care at all about that stuff.
Oh, I don't care either. I love this idea that op-eds get changed, though, after the fact. I wrote this yesterday, but my opinion has since evolved.
I mean, op-ed editors get fired for takes, which is
For sure.
Which is bizarre to me. It's like that's their job, to be contrarians. It's
Yeah.
like an opinion editorial. It's not journalism. But I feel like
What I think, sorry to cut you off, but I was just going to say to that point you were making, was that they wanted a guy to come with a take. He brought a take.
Yeah.
And they're like, ooh, this take is irresponsible. Yeah, no shit, man. But it was, you asked for his take.
I know. And it's like a specific skill to ignore that stuff and not I threw up a take yesterday that got some people riled up, which was like, RJ Barrett is not very good. And some people got mad, and I'm like, I'm just going to let it flow and not respond because what are we doing here? It's like, you have to give him a chance. He's young. You're the problem. And I'm like, those things all might be true, but I can't engage, But I
mean, when I read that guy's column, I assumed the ending would be, there's no way I'm going. And when it said, I'm going anyway because I love my parents so much, I was like, ooh,
I like that.
That's spicy.
Cool. Yeah.
Irresponsible? Sure, but spicy.
Yeah, and he's certainly not alone. And I defund WIS, but I wish he took the angle of I think loneliness is the incentive here, and we should never underrate or underscore somebody's need for some sort of response in their lives. And if someone's just like, yo, my circle's really big, but like I really miss my friends' kids' parents, and you're like, well, I don't have kids, I don't have friends like that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Everybody has their own kind of goalposts with this thing. And if someone's just like, I love my parents so much, and they're good to go, they're young, they're healthy, and I'll see them next year, probably, most definitely, but I just want to see them. I'm like, yo, fair enough, man. Like, I have not defunded with enough to have a
And the
take.
thing is, and in 99% of those cases, the parents are going to be fine. Probably more, but in a few they won't. A few people who really wanted to see their parents and couldn't bear to eat a turkey and some cranberry sauce without mom and dad are going to kill one of their parents with COVID. Like,
It's
we know
crazy.
this. We know this.
Yeah. And like, this is a lesson in like statistics, right? Because you're right. 99% of them will be fine.
Right, and then they say, well, I went home for Christmas. It was fine.
Well, like the stats,
Just like I knew it would be.
what did the stats say? Like 1 in 1,000 black men will die. I'm like, that is fucking breathtaking.
Insane.
It's insane. It's just insane. And I don't know. Yeah, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just hope it's not as bad as it can be. That's all.
So are you planning on doing a Zoom Thanksgiving?
No, I'm gonna watch a ton of TV. That's for sure. I'm gonna probably log on to Twitter once or twice, maybe. Is Thanksgiving bullshit?
I'm going to simultaneously candy yams at the same time as my family members. You know,
I just want to get Kyrie Irving for a second here. Is Thanksgiving? You know, Kyrie Irving famously said Christmas is a construct, and he's correct. He's mostly correct, except for that one thing he wasn't correct about. But he was just testing us. So I'm testing you, Ben.
I like Thanksgiving a lot more than I like Christmas.
Oh, is there a reason why?
I kind of just dig the feast element.
But there's feasts in Christmas. Is the worshiping of a false idol the reason?
It's all the generosity
tree.
really gets my goat.
Oh, but you just haven't gotten good presents yet, man. You're the sock receiver.
Sheer capitalism.
We have a rule here that under $20 or make it, which is kind of a bummer because you can't really spoil somebody. But it's usually drawings or like tube
You're
socks.
gonna get a knitted PS5.
I would fucking love that. If someone knitted me a PS5, I'd put it behind glass.
It's made of macrame, like an owl.
I mean, incredible. It's just probably cheaper and more efficient to just buy a PS5.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
I like the feast. I like the feast.
You like the food? Do you eat turkey on both holidays?
Turkey for Christmas.
Yeah, do you do that?
That's goose season.
I know. Well, I do. I traditionally like to do Peking duck for both.
Ooh, see, I respect that. Yeah, Christmas turkey. Why would you eat turkey more than once a year?
I know. I've grown to love turkey, man. I know it's the Gordon Hayward of proteins, but when you go to a barbecue spot, the turkey is sometimes really good.
Hating on turkey is old news.
Mm-hmm. But relevant.
It's not great. It's fine. It's not the main actual component of that meal. The meal is the sides. Come on, we know this.
I like the gravy. Yeah, gravy on everything. Just drown it. Just drown it, man. I said drown it.
Anyway, the point here is, like, you can skip Thanksgiving and Christmas, whatever.
I know, but it's like
I'm not even being judgmental of people. I'm just saying it's not that big of a deal. Like, call up your parents, say hello.
I know, but it's for us. It's not big of a deal because it's not a big deal to us. I got some friends who do things like they sing together. The family sing, man. Isn't that weird? After dinner, after dessert, everyone cleans up and sings together. Like, what the hell?
The Haywards.
Dude, have you ever been to a Thanksgiving where everyone says what they're thankful for?
When I was younger, we used to have huge monumental Thanksgivings and Christmases with 25, 30 people, which I always liked those better than the more nuclear version.
That's crazy. Okay, what crew did you hang out with? It was It was Tony Meatballs, Joey Electric.
Oh, I mean, the sheep god himself.
What up, sheep god?
No, they were great. I had enough cousins that we could play like 3-on-3 basketball.
Nice.
We could round up the adults and play like 6-on-6 football outside. Those holidays were great.
That's fun. That is fun. I've never had that, but that sounds awesome. And you can kind of melt away into the background easier, which I enjoy because usually growing up, my Thanksgivings and holidays were like 4 people. So it was like a lot of spotlighting.
Yeah, you could melt away, much like a thinly sliced garlic in oil.
Like the New York Knicks from the NBA.
In Tony Meatballs Marinara. Some basketball should happen. Anything else? Oh, what am I doing? What am I?
All right, let's get these takes out.
Okay. So, HBO's Undoing. Welcome to Undoing Undone, America's #1 most influential podcast. Okay, the time mark here, mid-30s. We're going to talk for a little while. We're going to include some spoilers.
Yeah.
So just skip forward. You know the little timestamp. You can move it forward. So we have just watched episode 5 of 6 in HBO's The Undone. I want the quote big board.
I was saving up.
I want the KBB. What's the KBB? The Quo Big Board for our.
Here we go.
The Undoing Suspects. Quo Big Board. Go.
It's the friend, man. It's the lawyer friend.
She's so busy. Is she too busy to murder?
I have this theory that no one cares about anyone's life that much. She cares a little too. Oh, she hired Hugh Grant, this handsome, debonair cancer doctor, as a client. What happened? Oh, it's maybe some jealousy. Maybe it's a crooked cop. Maybe. Okay, the sledgehammer in the kid's violin case was pretty funny, but it can't be the kid because that kid's kind of a wimp here. And because we know it's the cliffhanger for the prequel of the series finale, it can't be him.
Yes, because the kid was always my #1 suspect. Absolutely, that little Jack Harlow fuck.
But it didn't happen.
But
it's not going to be him.
Okay. Again, these are some big spoilers. This, if you haven't watched this, and you can.
Nothing happens in the show yet.
Nothing happens. Nothing's revealed.
Yeah, we find out, and then nothing happened.
My favorite lack of finding out anything was the end of 3, where Grace, Nicole Kidman's character, is walking down the street, and you're like, oh my god, she's a suspect. And then at the beginning of the next episode, like, she was on one of her walks, and everyone just drops it until this episode. But, so I'm going to present this question for you. The sledgehammer, the missing murder weapon, was found in the violin case of little Jack Harlow by Nicole Kidman. This would mean, based on the information that we have thus far, that the murderer is either Hugh Grant or Jack Harlow. They are the only 2 people who were in that room at the same time when that murder weapon would have been dropped off. Does this eliminate every other suspect? Is this now a 2-man game?
Because if the kid is protecting somebody, the kid cares about that person, and the kid seemingly only cares. It could be the principal too. That was one of my top 5, top 3 suspects.
KBB is all over the place. I love it. This is way better than the real KBB.
Here is my top 8, top 3 suspects for the Undoing. What if he's protecting the principal? So the kid has to care about the killer. So it would obviously point to Hugh Grant, but that's too easy, man.
Right. So I'm saying
that's like the Knicks signing Bogdanovich.
I'm saying they've given us now a 2-man game intentionally. Well, they were both there on the night in question. Hugh came in, kissed his son on the cheek, and left.
Yeah.
Perfect opportunity to drop off a hammer in a violin case if you were framing little Jack Harlow. But the son is also a suspect. So they have given us now 2. which leads me to believe that it can't be either of them.
Well, okay, so I got the script. It's super spoiler. The kid is a huge fan of Cameron, and he was staging a Confessions of Fire album cover. A tweet, TikTok.
Little Jack Harlow got it popping.
Yeah, he's doing sit-ups and push-ups like a crazy kid to get that ripped physique for that Cameron album cover.
Confessions of Fire.
That was a good record, man. That's an awesome cover. Awesome. And I remember when it came out, I was working kind of in the biz at that point. And everyone's like, oh, new up-and-coming New York rapper. And I looked at the cover. I was like, this guy, how is this ever going to work?
Is he wearing leather overalls?
Yeah, dude.
Definitely overalls.
Yes. He's wearing leather overalls with, like, gloves and a sledgehammer with goggles on his forehead, I believe.
Scale of 1 to 10, how much was he glistening?
A 7 or 8, maybe. Sort of like a holiday goose. But I think where does Killer Season, where does Purple Haze stand in your rankings of all time? Does it rival like any Lil Wayne record?
It's really good. Are you trying to distract me from the undoing?
No, I'm telling you, the kid is going to go on to have his Purple Haze.
Okay, I can see
TikTok. So it's all a long game, but so the sledgehammer. Oh, are we assuming the sledgehammer belongs to the killer? Yes, right? Because why would there be two sledgehammers?
Right. Otherwise, why is there a hammer? Unless he saw the hammer in the court case and then went and got a hammer.
They could easily just make it. Was that a dream? It's like I was sleepwalking. He's like, what hammer?
No. I mean, what if the lawyer had the hammer and was doing it like again and again and again?
Yeah.
Again and again and again and again. Again. And did that, and the kid was like, oh my God, I got to get a hammer just in case. And he went and got a hammer and stashed it.
Got to drop these bars.
I'm saying, what if he was so affected by that moment that he went and got a hammer?
Yeah.
I wanted to see what it would be like to have a hammer.
The copycat hammer move.
Yeah, I mean, all right, want to know my real take?
Sure.
The Latina. Is she actually Latina? No one knows.
She seems kind of has some Russian vibes too, right?
Kind of. I mean, in real life, she's an Italian actress. Mm-hmm. So the racially ambiguous, culturally ambiguous murder victim, not dead. Yeah, that could be it too. Booyah!
That occurred to me that she is her own killer because we only have we only have 10 characters for a top 3. But
I think this is a scheme between her and maybe Hugh, or her and maybe the boyfriend, to frame up Hugh for her murder for some reason. And then they will escape and be on a yacht somewhere, and they'll high five and it'll freeze as the credits roll.
Did we see it? I believe we saw her in the morgue, though. Is that not true?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's the ending of Trading Places.
Oh, I like that.
They keep saying she was only identified by her husband, and her face was liquefied. They've said that so many times. No one ever mentions like how you can't tell it's her over and over and over about a dead person. What's the point? Chekhov's gun, bitch.
Well, yeah, to your theory, her, like, that scene where she confronts Nicole Kidman in the locker room naked was kind of, like, unnecessary and gratuitous, so it would have to kind of play into...
thought it was a great scene.
It was really a weird scene.
Perfect. The perfect scene.
But it was, like, it was gratuitous, and they flashed back to it a little bit, and I'm like, right, if her face is liquefied by a sledgehammer, it would only have to be... the body would have to be a part of the story, right? Because they objectify her quite a bit in the first 2 episodes. They talk about the way she looks at a party, all this stuff. Unless that's just moot. A kid cannot swing a sledgehammer like that. She could fend off a kid with a sledgehammer, right?
Probably. But also, I agree with that. Unless he crept up and like hit her from behind while she wasn't paying attention, then fell on the ground.
True.
But also, though, why do they keep emphasizing that she's unrecognizable? What's the point of that?
Maybe
What's the
she's
point?
in hiding, right? Where would be the place? If she's hiding, we've already seen the
She
place
was
where
up
she
in
is.
Montauk hiding out with Hugh, and then the family showed up, so he had to like bail.
Interesting.
But-
I like this theory.
But,
I mean,
but whose body is it though? But a doctor
Yeah.
can get a body. Hugh can get a body.
I think this is also a plausible outcome that I was trying to think about. But yeah, whose liquefied face is that?
I'm
It's
just
just a
saying,
rando.
it was identified by the husband and says that's her, which leads me to think that the husband is in on it
Because he
with
is
her, and she's not actually dead.
he is purposefully nervous in the show, and they asked him to act that way. Is it to mislead us, or is it to reveal that he's in on it?
And his alibi has been sticking in my craw for weeks.
He was with his son?
He was with his sleeping son. That's not an alibi. Why
Right.
would you wait this long to bring it up and be like, and here it is, a completely flimsy non-alibi?
And the son is kind of acting suspect, as if he's still chilling with his mom. The son looks kind of skittish, right? I mean, not necessarily overtly sad, but just kind of like our eyes darting everywhere. This is the eye test. This is the KBB eye test.
Oh, you're a gut guy now.
Yeah, I think my gut feeling says the son is chilling with his mom.
Is
and Tony
Sutherland
Meatballs.
out? Is Sutherland totally out as a suspect?
He's way too creepy. That misdirection would be too wah, wah, right? Like, he would be the obvious. He's vindictive. He's Donald Sutherland, who's in every single movie as the same guy.
I'm a cocksucker, and I don't mean that in the gay way. I mean it in the way that I will cradle the balls of the Reardon
Tony
School.
Meatballs.
I will, if you don't let my son back in, I will work that shaft.
I was not expecting that.
And again, not in a gay way.
Not in a sus way. I think, I don't know. It could be anybody. This is kind of like, is there a murderer here that would be like, wow, I love that ending? It would just be like, I knew it.
There's one. It's her alive, winning with a Latino, taking down this entire family, much like the plot of Parasite. It's a class vengeance tale.
I'm hoping none of this is a dream. That's all I hope. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that'd be the worst.
It would be the
Oh,
worst.
It's just another normal afternoon at the Reardon School.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want the beginning of the final episode for her to wake up and be like, and open up the guitar, the violin case, and nothing's in there, you know?
Oh, no. Now I think it's either going to be a dream or he's going to say, I went to the hardware store and got myself a hammer because it looked so scary up there. I wanted to see what it felt like.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of just like catty misdirection.
It's equally as catty as her, the only person on the entire street of New York within a block of the crime while it happened. Interesting. But I also think she's boning the boyfriend, though.
They have a lot to cover in the last episode.
One left, my guy.
Is it going to be a normal length, or is it 2 hours? I hope it's long, man.
I hope they don't solve it. And they're just like, yeah, find out more on the season 2.
Well, they already announced this is the series finale, so it has to end. But, like, right. So my favorite idea is the open-ended shit, but really what I want is the Agatha Christie, right? It's like, you did it because we thought you were secretly having an affair. That's why you have the weird pocket knife, you know? Like, I don't know.
Oh, okay, all right. I solved it. I'm telling you. I think I have it. Okay. It's a fake out by the Latina, quote, Latina, and her boyfriend. It's a fake out. She's not actually dead. I don't know where they got the body. That can be figured out later. This is my theory now. I'm sticking with this one. They have set up, somehow, I have no reason to explain this, they have set up a situation in which the son will look like he did it, and then Hugh Grant takes the blame for the son, thinking his son did it, and then goes to prison after admitting doing the crime, but actually no one is dead.
Yeah, that could be it. That would be very unsatisfying, but we've seen similar shit like that, right?
It would be satisfying for me now that I've declared it the ending. I don't even have to really even watch episode 6 now. I just gave you the plot.
Right. Just listen to Confessions of Fire. It's the same thing.
Exact same thing. All right. Glad we got that out of the way on the world's most influential on podcasts. Okay, what about basketball? Anything going on?
Well, the Knicks are going to go 82-0. Mm-hmm. The Lakers got worse. People are fleeing the Beantown, and cops are visiting Gordon Hayward's house every day for some reason.
Well, let's before we get into the Knicks and the Sixers and the Lakers, the Bucks, all these other things. What's going on in Boston? Why are people fleeing the Bean?
Has the chowder turned? I mean, okay.
Bad beans.
Kyrie Irving, out of here.
Wait. Let's start even earlier. Rozier out. Kyrie out. Horford out. Hayward out. 4 marquee superstars leaving the Bean. The Emerald City. Why? The cradle of liberty. Why are they leaving? Is it a toxic culture?
Has the pot of gold vanished? Yeah, let's say it's toxic. Whatever, I'm down for it.
Fuck, man, everyone's leaving.
Yeah, Jason Tatum is a cancerous locker room presence. Sure.
He signed that contract knowing that he could quickly be traded if he signed it.
True. Brad Stevens is an evil leprechaun who has traversed time and space to haunt revelers of St. Patrick's Day.
But really, though, is there an argument here?
It's weird.
Why does everyone keep leaving Boston?
I mean, I think in the optimist view, it would be, or if you, with green tinted glasses, you would say they have found their guys in Tatum and Brown. So someone like Gordon Hayward kind of sees the writing on the wall, right? Like, he's not going to get as much money from Boston as he could somewhere else. Might as well expedite it. He knew something. He knew a team would offer him this giant contract. It's like, I'd rather have security because I get hurt all the time. I'd rather have the security of 4 years over betting on myself for 1 year. Whatever. I mean, that's plausible to me. Also, he might hate that they voted Democrat.
Is it a toxic workplace?
Yes.
Thank you.
Didn't I just say that? I thought I just went through it.
Yes. Hayward, that's a crazy contract to give him. I think he's a pretty good player.
But not surprising, right? Like, someone was going to do it, and obviously it was Charlotte or New York.
I am surprised that someone did it.
Oh. What was it, 120?
I think, yeah, it was $30 million a year for 4 years. If someone said there's a 4-year contract for 22 a year, okay, it's not that different. You know, if it was 25, we'd say, that's probably too much. But there's something about that just hitting 30, I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, it's not really that different. But what was crazy about that contract, though, was that they had to waive and stretch Nicholas Batum, who they had signed to another bad contract from 4 years ago. And in doing so, they are going to have to pay $9 million of Batum's salary this year, next year, and the year after. Basically bringing the financial commitment to Gordon Hayward to close to $40 million a year in terms of what they're now investing in him.
Yeah.
That, to me, is even more crazy than the initial contract.
But just to clarify, the $30 million counts against the cap, and then the rest of it are penalties, right?
Stretch counts against the cap.
Oh, it does?
It just spreads your cap hit over multiple years.
I mean,
so
I'm okay with that.
27 for this year, it would be over 3.
Yo, when you're Charlotte, it's hard to get players even like Gordon Hayward to go, right? in a vacuum of his quality, I think he's a pretty good player. If he was an all-star this year, no one would be shocked. It's hard to get players like that in Charlotte. So if you're Michael Jordan, whatever, right?
I mean, Charlotte is a completely relegated team at this point, I would say.
Not as much. They do a better job than the Knicks do, in my opinion, which is not saying much, but their draft picks are nice. Like, Batum was a nice player. Kemba Walker was kind of good. Like, they had a couple bad years, but the Kemba Batum years, not boring.
They were still pretty boring. I mean, Kemba was
I like Kemba,
obviously
whatever.
a very good player.
Yeah.
Kemba's cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at their team, Devontae Graham's okay. Hayward instantly becomes their best player.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But
I
there's
like
no one
their
else. There's no
rookies,
one else
whatever.
good on that team.
Yeah, Miles Bridges is interesting. There's reason to be excited, but I like the Knicks situation better than the Charlotte situation for sure. But there's some players.
I mean, I'm
on
just
there.
looking at their roster. I'm like, Rozier makes a lot of money. He's not good. You rebuilt the 2018 Celtics. You got a Zeller. I don't know. I don't really get the plan for them other than to say we're going to try to fight for that 8th seed, because looking at the East, there are basically 7 good teams, and someone who's lousy is going to get that 8th seed. And it might be Orlando, it might be Charlotte, it might be Washington, it might be Chicago, it might be Atlanta. Someone's going to be battling against Orlando for that 8th seed. Like, it's there. A team with a losing record could potentially get it. A 500 team gets you there, or at least into the play-in.
Man, I like this team. Miles Bridges, P.J. Washington, LaMelo Ball, Hayward. Not bad. That is probably a team to miss the playoffs, but P.J. Washington is kind of interesting. I love LaMelo.
I mean, that strikes me as I don't know what the exact number of wins would be in the current schedule when they
32, 33.
But
Yeah,
if you were going
in
to in an 82 game season, that strikes me as like a 30-win team.
Yeah, but LaMelo fell to them. That's cool. They need to do more work for sure. They have to convince someone else to go play there. But Hayward for 420 is way too much, I think. But if you want to convince him to play for a bad team, that's what it'll cost.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
So let's get into the Knicks a little bit. So there were a lot of theories floating around, much like the show The Undying, about
That
the
we
Knicks
solved.
offseason.
Yeah.
That we solved.
Yeah.
That the Knicks would be interested in Gordon Hayward, that they would be interested in Gallinari, they'd be interested in Fred VanVleet, they would be hunting after Westbrook. Thus far, Knicks have not made those kind of bold, expensive moves. How do you feel about what they've done instead?
Bored but pleased. I was saying on Twitter, the Knicks fan base is kind of in a conundrum because there's nothing really to get outraged about. I'm upset they didn't get Halliburton, but Obi Toppin is like an electric offensive player. Okay. They didn't get a star in free agency, but they didn't take on bad contracts. All these contracts are really usable. Cool. There's nothing to really get upset about in the traditional moves, like getting a Gordon Hayward, doing exactly what Charlotte did. The Knicks didn't do. The Knicks haven't done this for years, and I'm happy for this. Time goes on. We get older, and it's like every year that goes by for waiting for next year sucks. But they got to wait till next year again. That draft is really good, and throw all the money at Giannis. I think this has everything to do with the 2021 draft, the 22 possibility of it being a double draft, and the possibility of luring Giannis away from the Bucks.
One thing I don't like is the obsession with short contracts. I know that the explanation for that is trying to get Giannis and keeping as much financial powder dry as possible for the following offseason. Well, we can get Kawhi and Giannis. I get it. But the gambit of short contracts trying to flip people with the budget, then run it back the next season.
At the deadline, right?
At the deadline,
Yeah.
Sorry. It doesn't really build anything because you don't get guys who are underpaid. So you're basically just hoping that someone that you've paid above market rate will play well and a team will need them. There's no other plan other than that for your own franchise. So like sometimes it works with like, Marcus Morris. He played well. You ended up getting a late first round pick for him. That worked. Like that was effective. But all these other guys, after 1 year, you just cut them loose and they flow off somewhere else. You don't end up with anyone who is undervalued or can be a part of your team in the future. It kind of shows a lack of confidence in your ability to sign good players who won't hemorrhage value as soon as they're in your uniform.
Yeah, and I always thought the problem with the Knicks is the scouting. They don't identify good players, which sounds simple, but all these guys just are not good. And finally, they got a good one, Nerlens Noel. We love him. I believe Nerlens probably wouldn't sign a longer deal with the Knicks. I see that as maybe him being like, I'm going to bet on myself for $5 million 1 year, probably get on a winning team by the deadline, and maybe go back into free agency and try to get more money than I would have gotten this year, That was the only explanation, because why would you sign a good player to just 1 year? It's useless. He turns into a second-round pick or maybe a late first with conditions, right? So I agree with you, but I also say, like, none of these players are good. So if you're looking at, like, Mario Hezonja or Emmanuel Mudiay, just like, well, they're not very good.
I think it's partially a lack of diligence on their part. You look at Duncan Robinson and Covington.
Oh, these are good. These are good teams that acquire them, though.
Right. I'm just saying those guys are floating around, and if you are in a position to not care about wins and losses, you just have to work a little bit harder to cycle those guys through your team and see if you can find somebody that sticks. The Nets found Harris and Dinwiddie. Those guys are valuable. Yeah. Jeremy Grant was a second-round pick. We've seen the value of guys who kind of came from nowhere. Yeah. Christian Wood was floating around. Like, these guys should be on the Knicks. They should have had some of these guys. They should have signed them to team-friendly long-term deals just to see what happens. The problem is they're basically just reshuffling their roster year in and year out, hoping to get someone in the draft, hoping to scoop up a little something off of one of these picks at the deadline, and then trying to keep their powder dry for the future. It's not a terrible plan, but it doesn't really build anything. That's my issue with it.
Yeah, and I just think we have to see the context, right? Like, smart teams identify Duncan Robinson and Covington and Jeremy Grant, but the Knicks are trying to combine elements of heavy metal music with rap. Like, they're doing a completely different thing. So even just sticking to these rookies, I don't know how we still have Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox, and Iggy Brzdakis on our roster, but I'm very happy that they're still there. And that is, I'll take that. It's like you're asking Fred Durst to all of a sudden take off his red hat. It's just like, okay, it could happen in theory, but it's Fred Durst and he wears a red hat.
Yeah, I think there's truth to that. It just seems as if they're doing half measures where they've kind of figured out, well, we want to keep our picks and we don't want to spend too much money. Whether or not those are actually true, we want to keep our young guys on the team.
Sure,
these things are not actually always right. They've just sort of decided that, well, this is the proper way of doing things. You keep your young guys, you keep your picks, and you don't spend a lot of money on free agents. Yeah, but there are no real rules here.
I know.
There's nothing to say you shouldn't have traded Frankie Smokes 3 years ago.
Yeah, and maybe I like them keeping him because you're never going to get equal value for him because it's so low. He's not very good, and R.J. Barrett's not very good.
But Frankie Smokes might have had value a year and a half ago.
Maybe.
R.J. Barrett might have value now. What I mean is, it's zombie formalism, right? It's saying the smart rebuilds, they keep their young guys, they keep their picks, they don't spend money on veterans. You're like, well, that's not always true. Like Sam Hinkie tried to trade the Rookie of the Year. He did trade the Rookie of the Year.
Zombie formalism is kind of confusing because of the word zombie. But zombie formalism is flipping. Marcus Morris is zombie. You know who zombie formalist is? Sam Presti right now. He's flipping assets for more assets. Zombie formalism was about everyday materials creating color field abstractions with new processes, and then flipping that on the market for double, triple its price. And I wish the Knicks did that with Ed Davis. I'm very happy with what they did. Kind of an odd, savvy move by them by doing this small thing and getting something small back. And now they have Draymond Green too, more Draymond Greens. I wish. In Amari Spellman and 3 draft picks, just because they took on Ed Davis's lousy contract.
Yeah,
or just small
and
contract.
to the Knicks' credit, they did not have a team like the Thunder that had superstars, that had quality players to tear down. They didn't have guys with value to flip because they got rid of those guys, or they didn't have them in the first place.
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good example. He's someone that they could have just held on to, but they wanted to clear that cap space. So he was viewed as a dump. But Tim Hardaway Jr. is pretty good, and he makes $17 million a year, which is not crazy. He's someone that you probably could have gotten an asset for at some point. But instead, he was viewed as a negative because they traded him at the wrong time.
So all this is true, and I think we, relitigating kind of Tim Hardaway Jr. stuff and where the Knicks go wrong is kind of, we know it. We're smart now as a fan base, right? Everyone knows this.
But that's why I'm wondering about it. We got into this too much about last week, about the conventional wisdom, that those things I'm pointing out. Oh, the Knicks are doing it right. They're doing these things, but maybe that's not right.
Sure. I think the more interesting discussion now is the Knicks aren't imploding their chances at being good eventually, but they have a bevy of young players now, and that's kind of the story. The story with New York is we don't have to worry about Gordon Hayward. What is Obi Toppin? We don't have to worry about Paul Millsap. What is Mitch Robinson? I love all this stuff. Like, Nerlens, sadly, is the exact player I wanted, but he doesn't belong to the Knicks. I don't see him. He's passing through, he will be gone by the end of the season. I hope he decides to stay. I don't know. But I think the discussion of how bad they have been is kind of like over talked about. Of course, we know this. Limp Bizkit is, or like, Mudvayne isn't making relevant records again.
Looking future forward here. Alfred Payton, Mitch, RJ.
Don't get choked up. These are wonderful players.
Austin Rivers.
Austin Rivers, that's a fine contract.
Randall? No, I'm saying, is that your starting lineup?
Oh, I don't care. I hope so. I'd lose those games.
Well, that's what I was going to say here, right? I mean, that's the worst lineup in basketball, right?
I hope so. That's what we're doing, right?
I think they are.
Yeah, and this is a point of view that's, it's not the best, but it's acceptable. Lose every game, even though with flattened odds. This draft is loaded. Just give yourself the opportunity to get these top 3 guys. And hopefully we'll see Obi Toppin. He's exciting. I don't like him because he's lost on defense, but as an offensive player, he's 22 years old. He's kind of a nice offensive player. It'll be a fun season.
I have no idea what the next season will be like. I think I think the fan base has been beaten down so much that this off season of more or less doing nothing is being accepted as like, okay, this is totally fine. I think the Knicks are going to be largely just, obviously they're relegated, but I think they're going to be mostly even forgotten by the fans, other than some Obi Toppin dunks, and I think everyone's happy with that and content with it and good to go.
I mean, I've always had this, for the last 3 years I've had this take, post KP maybe, since then, and it sounds like the jerk store, but I say, like, look away for a while. This is like, it won't be fun unless you're into it. If you're going to get angry, there's things to get angry about with the Knicks right now. I'm going to watch all 82 games, or how many they play this season. But if there was a season to take a break, it would be this one. You can't go to the games because of COVID. They have a terrible team. It's like, this is the time to maybe like follow another squad, play fantasy harder. And like, if you like this team, watch them. Like, this is not the time to, you're screaming at nothing. This is a conundrum. Can I borrow a feeling, right? Millhouse.
I would agree with you. And maybe that is what's incentivized the Knicks to basically just flagrantly tank and keep their salary space available to maybe get some more assets by eating contracts. In that, from what we can tell, I don't know that the Garden will be open for basketball.
Doesn't seem like your boy BDB will let that happen, and it's a shortened season. So if there's less games,
if there's less games and you don't have fans there, what does Dolan care?
Yeah,
he doesn't have to sit there and have people chanting, "Sell the team" to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to worry about his, bum ass squad getting shoved around and bullied, and doesn't have a face puncher there to strike back.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't care.
Yeah,
this is the best season if you're Dolan to be like, fine, we'll just be awful. I don't care.
And it's so funny the adjectives that people use to describe Obi Toppin, like he's Showtime, he's big ticket stuff. I'm like, oh, none of that stuff is happening next year. We're gonna draft a better player and be like, we also have Obi Toppin. Okay, like I desperately wanted Halliburton, and I will always have my little grumblings about that. But Toppin will be forgotten quickly. Like people, by the same people who are like, oh, we have Kevin Knox still. I forgot about him. I'm like, that's kind of where Obi Toppin stands too. But hopefully he'll electrify the crowd with some dunks. And Dolan cares about vanity, right? Like he cares about walking through the corridors and sitting next to beautiful people and having celebrity row. And
and he doesn't have that this year.
It's not there. So if there was ever a season to skip the Knicks, it's this quick season, right?
I agree. As far as the Sixers go, we talked about them in their roster remake quite a bit last episode. Since then, the major move they've made was the signing of Dwight Howard to a 1-year deal. He was a member of the Lakers last season, won a title. The only interesting thing about that move to me is the fact that he will most likely spend a lot of his minutes aside Ben Simmons, because they tend to split up Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. So pairing Simmons with a center who can't spread the floor was something that I have been skeptical of for quite some time. Unfortunately, Philly has almost solely done that, and the numbers generally have not been good. When Simmons plays next to someone like Boban or Greg Monroe or Amir Johnson who can't shoot, we see them both diminish in their effectiveness. Simmons can't get to the basket where he wants to score, and it eliminates him as a creator and a scorer and basically as an offensive weapon. Mm-hmm. Howard, of course, can't shoot, famously so. So, to me, it was an unexpected move, but it also makes me wonder, was Simmons' ineffectiveness with non-shooters just the product of not having guys who can jump and run and catch lobs? That they just don't have the kind of athletic bigs that could benefit from his passing abilities. And I went back and looked at the numbers when Simmons played with Rashawn Holmes, who was the only legit lob threat that he spent time on the court with. Numbers were pretty good. They were pretty good. Not world-beating, but it made me think that maybe this has been part of his game, that the conventional wisdom about spacing has made us forget is possible. When you look at Jimmy Butler running pick and rolls with Bam, neither one of them is really going to shoot. Mm-hmm. Bam is just looking for a lob. And when you put shooters on the court, it still works. So I'm really intrigued to see what will happen in terms of adding an elite lob catcher to Simmons. Dwight might not be as springy as he once was, but I went back and watched some of his games. There were certain ones where he caught 6 lobs in a game.
Yeah, he had moments in the bub.
And, there was one game he caught 6 lobs, 5 for dunks, and 1 he laid it in.
Yeah, I remember that.
I would say this might be more lobs than Joel Embiid caught all last year.
Yeah, different type of player.
He is a great player, but he just is not a lob catcher. Yeah. Neither is Jokic, neither is Marc Gasol, Boogie Cousins, plenty of earthbound, high-quality centers. But having been with a guy who can really get up there and is looking for those kind of opportunities, I'm kind of optimistic about it in a way that I would not have been if the move wasn't made by Daryl Morey.
Yeah, Daryl Morey had Dwight Howard in Houston, so he knows him well, and he's depreciated, but not by a large margin. I think he can still do a lot of things, to your point. I like that. My thought was, especially after they moved Zhaire for Dwight Howard 3 more Dwight Howards, is like, if, Morey was so good at surrounding James Harden with the right pieces and surrounding a certain type of player with a unique skill set with people that helped him. Eric Gordon, Danwell House, like these really cool players in that system. And if he comes to Philly and he chooses Philly, he's like, well, I have two principal assets here: Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. And Joel Embiid is my guy. And Ben Simmons is more versatile. He's more of a multitasker. But Embiid is wonderful. But we need to surround him with support. I'm going to surround him with support. Okay, done. Then, if Joel goes down or misses time, how are these pieces going to react? We need someone to replace Joe for everything to still click at a marginal level. And maybe that's the rationale of getting two centers to back up Joe.
Yeah, I'm surprised, because I think even a progressive GM would look at Ben Simmons and say, let's get ourselves a Brook Lopez. That's the model here. And I think it's cool that Morey said, nope, we're going to run pick and rolls with two guys who are basically the same height, 6'10".
Yeah.
One's going to set a bone-crushing screen and then flare to the basket looking to catch a 12-foot lob. And the other guy's going to barrel over or scoot around the center that comes over. And we're just going to run pick and rolls with with a 4 and a 5. And we don't think you can defend that if we spread the court with shooters. And I like it. It's interesting.
It's so interesting. It's also interesting how when he left Houston, some criticism was like, he doesn't believe in centers. I'm like, oh, Capella, Dwight Howard. I believe he was in the Yao Ming era.
Yeah.
Like, he does know how to work with these wonderful centers, man. Like, it's
Scola?
just Scola. He had James Harden. That's why. I mean, in my opinion, I think it's because Robert Covington was available, and Robert Covington is a unique player. So that's why.
I think part of it was also just Westbrook.
That
once
too.
Westbrook was added to that mix, you couldn't put someone in the lane without stymieing him, or having him off ball and a non-shooter in the lane with Harden with a rock, because they just left Westbrook. Yeah. I think there were a few other mitigating factors there. And you can't put Westbrook in the post like you can with Simmons.
Yeah. And also Capella, he had created Capella's value a bit, so I think he was willing to zombie formalize that too.
So anyway, yeah, I'm interested in seeing Philly running some pick and rolls with Simmons and Embiid. The critique of Brett Brown unwilling to use pick and rolls enough, I feel like was bullshit.
Yeah,
the Sixers didn't have a big man who was good at running pick and rolls, and they didn't have a guard that was particularly adept. Pick and rolls are not great offensive plays unless you have Chris Paul or Lillard
or Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr.
I mean, there's basically like 5 guys that it's worth running pick and rolls with, and no one else is good at it.
Yeah, it's true. Shout out to LaMelo.
Kemba's good.
Can we talk about the Peanut Lord, your legume legend, leaving the Sixers?
So Zhaire Smith, the third-year player who has played a handful of games due to a series of injuries, all of which were annoying. I can't even name them exactly. I think he broke a bone, then he had a peanut allergy, then he had...
He almost died.
He almost died. He ate too many Snickers bars and almost perished as a result. Too many cashews.
They call him Tony Nuts for a reason.
But anyway, I was hoping he would get a chance in Philly, even though he was a little ways down the depth chart in terms of wings, because he's still really young. Showed a bit of a jumper in the G League last season. Not a great ball handler, but he is an explosive athlete.
Ferocious dunker, above the rim guy.
Yeah, I thought he had potential as a 3-and-D guy who could really get out and run, jump, and be exciting and
Dribble
have
hard.
a lot of upside. But they dealt him for another young third-year player who is, well, this guy's going into his third year. Tony Bradley. Some people call him Tony Meatballs. Sorry.
Brad Electric.
So Tony Meatballs was a backup center for a couple of years on Utah.
UNC product. Played
Really
1
doesn't
year.
play very much,
Yeah.
but has some interesting statistics, including being ridiculously good at offensive rebounding and incredibly efficient, but he is very slow. He's unathletic. He doesn't seem like a great defensive player. It was a bit of a surprise of a trade.
Yeah, I have a lot of biased love for Zhaire Smith because he seems like a lovable guy. Loved him in the draft. He was high on the KBB. You traded Mikal Bridges, a serviceable NBA player, for him. I thought it was kind of wise to wait a little bit. And I don't know what's going on with Zhaire because it turns out he's getting released. And now he's just floating around in the NBA ether without a team. I don't know if his allergies played into that, but something about him makes him not a coveted asset anymore. I was really disappointed because I love his prototype of player, and I don't like Bradley's prototype of player. But a tap-out lord who taps out, offensive rebounds and can fill in if Dwight gets hurt, if Joe gets hurt, he certainly can eat minutes. Okay, he's young, He's got a motor.
Yeah, they're looking at Bradley's highlights. It's pretty easy to get through all of them since he barely played.
Yeah.
You can say, let me look at all your shots. Okay, cool.
Those
he's-
3 threes.
Yeah, he had 3 threes out of 3 attempts. He's perfect.
Out of 4, I believe.
3 or 3, I think, right?
Oh.
But, his shot looked okay. He was eager to shoot it, but Utah doesn't allow you to take threes if you're a center there, especially him.
Mm-hmm.
None of their guys have shot threes.
Yeah.
Favors didn't, Gobert doesn't, Ed Davis doesn't. So, that's their system. They don't have stretch fives. When he shot them with some confidence and stepped into them. I Googled around a little bit. He has said multiple times that he's working on his 3 ball, that he knows he can do it and that he wants to. So, to me, I look at this as he may never even wear a Sixers uniform.
Totally.
He might get waived,
Yeah.
in a month. But if you get Daryl Morey and you say, all right, Daryl, go stir up some of these players that you famously find from nowhere and they become good players. And you're like, I don't know what you see in this guy. Get him out of here. Why would you? You're like, this is what you signed up for.
Yep.
This is him trying to do that. Find a quality backup player on the scrap heap who has not had opportunity, who's had some injuries, who has failure on the eye test for the most part, and some weird stats that make correspondent to, say, being an elite offensive rebounder, highly efficient, and maybe he can even shoot some threes.
Yeah, and Morey understands sunk costs, and you're right. He may not ever even see the light of Wells Fargo Arena days, but that's fair. He is promising. I feel like you can find a player like him in the G League somewhere. Just pick the best offensive rebounder in the G League, and you don't have to give up Zhaire Smith. I thought that was a bit of a mistake, but I don't know what Zaire's open market value is. Maybe he was shopping him and there was no return.
I would guess that he tried to flip him for a second round or something and no one bit.
Oh my God, come on. I want the Knicks to sign Zhaire so bad, man.
Well, it looks like he's going to be waived and stretched by the Pistons, who allegedly only did this deal to save a couple $100,000. So if you want Zhaire, go get him.
I know. I tweeted it last night, maybe 2 nights ago. I tweeted the Knicks should just get Nerlens and just lick their wounds and go back and start the season. And lo and behold, magical thinking.
Shadow GM.
Magical thinking, the secret, Ben.
The legend of Tony Meatballs lives on.
Let's take a quick whip around the league and discuss what happened this week.
Okay, but, a lot happened. So, why don't we just focus on...
I want to talk about the Bucks.
Okay, let's talk about the Bucks. Let's talk Bucks and Lakers, and then we can call it quits.
Yeah, the Bucks, the Bogdan. Let's see if the Kings match. But the Bucks had Bogdan in agreement, but it was announced before the free agency period began, so everyone knows there's tamperings. But they violated the rules of tampering, probably. And allegedly Bogdan didn't agree to it, and so they lost Bogdanovich. So they traded a bunch of stuff for a slight upgrade, debatably, from Eric Bledsoe to Drew Holiday.
Well, the Bogdan issue seemed to be them outsmarting themselves.
They were excited.
Well, I mean, clearly this was agreed upon.
Yeah, of course.
By everybody. But they lost plausible deniability, and then Bogdan bailed on it.
Yeah.
It also had the effect of tipping his hand, or whoever's hand, because now we knew what the offer was.
Yep. It was a mistake.
So I think they were offering him something like $14 to $16 million a year. Mm-hmm. And then the Hawks can look over there and say, well, this is all now a problem that you have to now say you didn't want to go there, then go back there and face questions about it. Or you can just come to Atlanta and we'll pay you more.
Yeah.
You can just say, yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about. You fucked this up, not me. I'm going to Atlanta. So he kind of left them holding the bag.
Yeah, and Atlanta added Danilo Gallinari, Rajon Rondo, even, I don't know, Chris Dunn. So, it's kind of interesting, like Onyeka Okongwu. That team is fun, and Atlanta is one of the best cities in the country. No disrespect to Milwaukee. So Bogdan was like, fuck it, more money, cool team. But the Bucks, that was a poor handling of that situation, and it seemed like an unforced error. But
1 second here. How much do you think the young Jeezy versus Gucci Mane versus helped the Hawks recruiting efforts? That was a lot of Atlanta pride.
It was
on stage right before free agency started.
It was a lot of the eyes of the nation turned towards Atlanta, to that wonderful gentleman's club. I thought I was I respect Jeezy for taking that, because Gucci to me is a top tier artist, but he held his own, and some say he even won. So I think the chatter, the debate, the heat from that versus convinced Danilo Gallinari, who was like, "Mwah, chef's kiss, arrivederci." Is that the right language?
Yep, that's right.
Him and Tony Meatballs are taking their talents to Atlanta.
Buongiorno, Stacey Adams, save the Democratic Party.
I think it had everything to do with free agents flocking to the ATL.
As I suspected.
Who do you think won that versus?
I think they had different objectives. Gucci wasn't trying to win anything. He just wanted
fire
to talk
shots.
He just wanted to talk shit to Jeezy's face.
He's awesome.
Jeezy wanted to play records from Thug Motivation 101 to solidify that as a classic album, which he has insistently tried to do, justifiably.
Yeah,
I went to a show in New York. It was like the 10th anniversary of this. Like, he's very into the legacy elements of TM 101, and he played 3/4 of it out there along with a few of his other hits.
Perfect songs.
He wanted to be taken seriously as a member of like rap lore, one of the best rappers ever from Atlanta. Look at his legacy, how good he is. And I think he was relatively effective in that. You couldn't come away with it and say Jeezy doesn't have anthem after anthem after anthem.
Yeah. I just love Gucci's chaotic energy, and I think his highs are much, much higher. But to your point, Thug Motivation 101 is the perfect record, and it starts off like fucking fire. So,
Gucci was twitchy out there.
He was, and he's a more complicated dude, right? And Jeezy seems like more of a businessman, and like he understood the moment and was like, "This is how I succeed." And Gucci kind of rolled in, was just like, "But I'm Gucci." So it was like a different approach.
But I mean, the subtext to all this is just overwhelming.
Yes, murder.
You tried to get me killed, and I shot your buddy in self-defense, and then buried him in the dirt.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Did it seem like Jeezy was expecting something less antagonistic or less confrontational, and Gucci just brought it right away?
100%. I mean, his first thing was like, "Your father wish he had a daughter."
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was like he went for it.
Yeah, I mean, even I mean, Jeezy, but then Jeezy just hit after hit as Gucci was trying to fire these shots that weren't quite landing on Jeezy. Jeezy kind of held his own.
I mean, some of the Gucci stuff was wild because an enormous amount of his music is very personal and about like killing Jeezy's buddy.
Yeah,
And he's just there saying the stuff like, "Go dig your partner up." It's like
it's wild. This is
just
wild.
saying it right there to him. But again, Gucci didn't do anything to Jeezy. Jeezy tried to have him killed, and Gucci killed him over, in self-defense.
Yep.
Which was what the court found. So like, geez, it's not like they're even now.
No. Right.
Yeah, but you killed my friend, who I sent to kill you.
right. And optically was wild because Gucci kind of had a crew there, right? Like a maskless crew supporting him. And Jeezy was kind of alone.
I doubt it.
I mean, there was his dudes in the back, but not on the versus screen. Like Gucci was kind of doing the arms folded, turning his back, and Gucci was doing that, and Jeezy was kind of just like, I don't know. It was a win-win. I think both rappers came away with a new point guard, a new small forward, and possibly a Bogdan. Which one, we'll never know.
So getting back to the Bucks, you think they had a disastrous offseason so far?
I mean, no one. Yes, I do. I think if you're trying to convince Giannis to stay, and acquiring these two players was kind of enough, as we were saying when it was official or semi-official, and then having one of them slip through your fingers, and then looking at what it took to get Jrue Holiday. We're talking Knicks, baby. Giannis to the Knicks.
When you look at how much they coughed up to get Jrue Holiday, who's a very good player, but in my mind, not a
all-star, all-NBA player.
Incredible leap above Eric Bledsoe. He's better. He's bigger. He can do more things. But they're sort of similar. They're good defenders. They're not great shooters. Mm-hmm. He's better. But again, it's not like day and night. He's better. He's an upgrade.
Yeah.
But they gave up a ton of their future for that. And then to bungle the bogey deal. And then they screwed up your boy, what's his name, Conahan's contract. Where
right.
They tried to offer him a deal that he wasn't allowed to take due to the CBA. Then they had to go back, apologizing, and then offer him more money over a longer period of time. These are not moves that Giannis would look at and say, these guys have me covered for the next 5 years of my life.
I agree. I think they ran out of talent on in the free agency period, and I think they are probably as good or better team going into the season with Jrue Holiday, but not much better. Do I think they can win the championship? For sure. They still have my dude, your most hated foe, Chris Middleton. But the team is still intact. It wasn't a disaster. He didn't walk, or Middleton didn't walk, or Eric Bledsoe didn't leave for nothing. But yeah, man, if I was Giannis, I'd be kind of fucking annoyed, right? And if he loses eventually, he's gonna be like, well, Knicks, what do you have to offer? The question is, do they sign him? Does he sign? I know the answer to this. Does he sign right now so they can trade him for pieces, or does he wait it out?
He turns 26. He, being Giannis, turns 26 in a couple weeks. So he's going to be 26 when the season starts, meaning that he'd be 27 in the first year of that next contract, which puts him at 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Mm-hmm. He's the kind of guy who he might be great at 33, great at 34. We don't know. But foreseeably, this 5-year deal, this is his prime.
I agree.
So he actually has to be really conscientious if he's someone who cares about those legacy issues, which he almost certainly does.
He's a boomer.
He wants to shoot threes. He wants to improve his game and take fall away mid-range jumpers. He is someone who cares about winning a championship. Mm-hmm. Probably too much. But Perhaps. These are the rules that you have set for Giannis. That for Giannis to be taken seriously, he needs to win a ring. And if he looks at the Bucks and they don't win this year and says, well, shit, man, we've had the best record a couple of years in a row. We haven't won it. And now I'm going to commit the next 5 years of my career here. Meanwhile, I would assume that athletic companies he works for are offering him a lot of money to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get out of Milwaukee, dude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he seems like...
And the media wants him out of Milwaukee, too.
Yeah, everyone wants him out. Yeah.
Like, Milwaukee be like, this is a conspiracy. Like, yeah, it is, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I know. He's played there 9 years. We want him to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it would be the right time. I think his boomer tendencies are something that gives me hope as a Knicks fan. Or even Miami culture down there. There's talk of him going there. Those are pretty wonderful places to live. If I was him, I would take his talents elsewhere. After seeing what happened this offseason, too. Like, not great stuff. Like, not the worst situation, but not ideal either.
Also, LeBron has set a precedent. You can win a title and then bounce.
Yep.
That's okay, too.
Yep.
And actually, people are happy about it.
Yeah, and Giannis can sign a shorter contract. Maybe 2 or 3 years.
But what are you going to say if they do win it? Hey, you got to stay. We spent all those draft picks for Jrue Holiday. Well, so what, man?
Yeah.
You got a title. That was the point.
Yes.
You got it. Those draft picks were gone either way.
Yeah. I will be disappointed if he stays, but kind of pleased too, because whatever. Not every player has to come to New York or Miami or LA, but I hope he does move for the NBA's entertainment stake.
I don't have a problem with the city of Milwaukee. I haven't really thought about it. But as this group, I'm just sort of sick of this group. Like, I'd like to see
yeah, you hate them
somewhere
though.
else.
Right. I kind of like them quite a bit, but another year of them this year is fine, and break it up. Like, they've had their run. We see how short these things can be anyway, especially with the Warriors. So, like,
I'm a Bucks respecter. I just don't
like the
really
style.
like watching them play ball.
I don't mind them at all, but I know what you mean. We've talked about it. Yeah, I wouldn't mind shaking that up. There has been chatter of him, like Windhorse had proposed, like maybe he should sign so they can trade him for a bunch of stuff. But why would you do that?
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
It's a terrible idea. He was shot down immediately, and he was very annoyed
Why
by
don't
it.
you sign an ironclad contract for the minimum, and thus...
Why don't you devalue the team you're going to that can just give you money? It's like, great, I'm going to New York. Oh, but Mitchell Robinson isn't here. Obi Toppin, MVP, isn't here.
Why don't you rope yourself into a contract that you can't leave?
I know. So, well, he can demand a trade out of that pretty easily, I think.
Or he can just become a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you just do that because the money's going to be... Even if he decides to sit out this season, he will get his money.
Enough about the Bucks.
Lakers.
Let's talk about your team, the Los Angeles Lakers. As a Lakers day one, I see a lot of your fellow day ones are very excited. Like Schroeder, Trez, Wes Matthews, Marc Gasol. The Lakers won the title, and they're much better than they were before. Do you agree?
I mean, they're a little bit better. It's a difference between Joey Electric and Tony Meatballs, right? Like, yeah, I'd rather hang out with Tony Meatballs, but Joey Electric,
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I love Marc Gasol. I believe he's going to be 36 next year. I thought he was going to retire or leave for Europe, but they got him for 2 years. He has diminished greatly, as we saw in the playoffs last year. Still a good defender. Montrezl Harrell, I like him, but that prototype of player I don't enjoy, sort of like Precious Achiuwa from the draft, or I always use the reference of like Keith Van Horn or Kenneth Faried. Just the rebounding points guys, motor, whatever. Montrezl Harrell is very fun, so he might help that team just have a little pep in their step. But okay, that's a nice pickup. Schroeder's nice. Did they improve that much? I don't know. I don't think so.
In some ways, I think they might have done some of the things that Philly did, which was the desire to get more versatile players when you don't necessarily need to get more versatile.
Yeah, that's
Like
fair.
Danny Green was really good.
Yeah, he's good.
He was a valuable part of that team. I don't think Wes Matthews is the same. I think Wes Matthews is pretty good, solid contributor, but I don't think he's as good as Danny Green. I don't really love Schroeder. I think he's okay. I do like the Marcus Gasol signing, but to your point, he's old as the hills. He did seem more washed last season than he did 2 years ago. I don't love Trez. He's cool.
Yeah,
As
lovable.
a player, he's fun to watch, but I don't know. I didn't view that as a coup, getting him away from the Clippers.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I would say they are still the favorite. They have LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
I know Clay going down probably makes him the favorite. Actually, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I don't know, man. That team is still built to beat the Lakers, and I like Luke Kennard maybe slightly more than Landry Shamet. Shout out to Waluigi, but that they've had a quiet but whatever off season. Losing Trez to the Lakers is not a big deal. They couldn't really play Trez against Jokic, and like a player undersized rebounding motor 4 like Trez has their moments and spots, but not necessarily a must-have on a great team.
Yeah, looking at the West, I think the same teams that were very good last year look like they'll be good again. Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets.
Warriors might be pretty good.
Without Clay, I think they'll be okay.
Okay, yeah, no longer the favorites, but
I mean, for all of my Clay hatred, the filth that I say about Clay Thompson,
you've turned your tune on it. You've kind of grown to love him, right?
I've grown to respect how unique he is as a shooter that you can't leave, who can also defend.
How did that happen without him playing a single game?
I think it was seeing how many teams abandoned good shooters on the perimeter during the playoffs, just over and over and over. It didn't matter if you shot 33% or 40%. They just left you. They just did not care. And there was
Dishonest.
only a few guys. And like, this is not just me coming to this realization. You saw what happened in free agency, where those unique shooters that you
Joe
can't
Harris.
ever leave.
Yeah,
Joe
Bertans.
Harris and Bertans both made $17, $18 million a year.
Kinda love it.
Based solely on that.
Yep.
Like, solely on that thing, where you say, if you stick a Duncan Robinson on the court, it fucks up the entire Bucks gimmick defense.
Yeah.
They just can't play the same D when you have a guy that's unleavable.
Shooting is available, but not those kinds of shooters.
There just aren't those guys. And most of them, like Robinson, like Seth Curry, like J.J. Redick, are not good defenders. That you can attack them back the other way. While they're very good on offense, they are somewhat vulnerabilities. Seth Curry, the Sixers acquisition, he's not horrific on defense. But again, most of these guys are not a good defensive player. So Clay is a very unique prototype as one of the few guys that you cannot leave who also plays solid defense. So I've changed my tune on him because of the scarcity of those two skill sets in an off-ball player. There are superstars like Kawhi who you would never let shoot, but they're not the same. Kawhi doesn't even get that kind of treatment. You will help out on a Paul George drive and let Kawhi take a three.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. For sure, and you can never leave Clay, and removing him from the equation in the West is huge. It's ginormous because I think it takes the expectations of the rival to the two LA teams off the table. I just don't think they have enough with Wiggins and Weissman. But we'll see. Steph Curry is a nuclear weapon, and I hope he's super healthy. It's just his hand, so let's go. But yeah, the Lakers have to be the favorites still.
Without question. Even if Clay was back, they would still be the favorites.
Yeah, the team that wins is probably going to be the team that wins next year.
And also has LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, totally. And to Pelinka's credit, some nice role players now. Like, these aren't like the Kyle Kuzmas of the world. They are serviceable. Like, you should be able to get some minutes from these guys, except Gasol, whatever.
I agree with you. I think they're improved over last year. I don't love some of the contracts they gave out, but KCP, that's a clutch deal. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's that great.
So glad he's not in New York. Yeah, he had New York written all over him.
That's a clutch guy,
Yeah.
At the same time, people are like, yeah, I told you Pelinka. He knows what he's doing. Well, when you have LeBron James and you've just won a title and you have Anthony Davis and you have a huge market with good weather, not that hard to get Wes Matthews to come over there. Mm-hmm. You're playing with a stacked deck at that point. It's not like Pelinka's there and says, how can we coax Wes Matthews here? You just won a title. You have LeBron James. You play in LA.
Yeah.
He's down. Like literally anyone who's a vet choosing between a mediocre team or a good team or a place that might pay him a little bit more but has no chance and LeBron James in LA, like, come on.
I was thinking about Pelinka in relation to Machine Gun Kelly, because Machine Gun Kelly has been around a long time. Not a good artist, not deeply not for many people, but like the LeBron James of that community. Megan Fox joins the team. All of a sudden he's winning awards. His videos are going viral. I'm like, right, this is how it happens, right? Like if you add an element like LeBron James or Megan Fox to a Machine Gun Kelly, then all of a sudden you have relevancy where you tease a video with the actress that everyone cares about right now, Sydney Sweeney. It's like, right, Wes Matthews looks at LA and it's like, yeah, for sure I'll do that video. That seems like a good idea, Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, known for good ideas. Machine Gun Kelly and Cookies Hoops,
just
the world's most influential undying podcast.
The perfect undying podcast.
Undying
cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.